In this episode, we'll explore a commonly ignored and overlooked challenge many ADHD women face that keep you and your business small and what to do about it. When ADHD women entrepreneurs aren't aware of and actively addressing this challenge, it keeps you from doing the work you need to do inside and out to build and grow a prosperous and meaningful business. By the end of this episode, you'll have clarity on the problem, how to spot it when it arises, and what to do about it. Be sure to listen. Hi, I'm Jen Barnes, and you're about to experience how to ditch the old ways of doing things, embrace your neurodivergence, learn tips and tricks to function optimally, and love yourself, neurodivergence and all. Welcome to the Self Loved Woman podcast. Hey, it's Jen. I'm so glad you're here. I want to share about something I hear about a lot from women, especially ADHD women entrepreneurs. Really, a pattern I see as a therapist and a coach. I have a front row seat to the lives of many, something I feel really honored that people are willing to trust me with. And one of the things that I see is most women, especially moms, people in caregiving professions, or even people in caregiving roles in their lives, really struggle to prioritize themselves, to put themselves first. And if this is, you might have a priority list that sounds something like this: everyone else's needs, everyone else's wants, your needs, and then way down at the bottom, your wants, maybe someday. And if this is you, there's no judgment, right? Society trained us to be this way. This is what society taught us as young girls was important. In fact, Soraya Kamali, I might be saying her name wrong, the author of the book Rage Becomes Her: The Power of Women's Anger, actually talks about how we were given, or it was put upon us, this caring mandate from a very young age that we are required to care about and care for everyone else in the world way before ourselves. Even random strangers on the street. As a woman, a lot of times we might be afraid of, or at least aware of, that we would get judged if we didn't help someone. And some of us, like, a lot of times we really do want to help, but sometimes we just can't, or we don't have the bandwidth, or we focus our energy elsewhere and can get really negative feedback or criticism for that, or are afraid we would. And the truth is, you might, because you're a woman. And so this caring mandate was put on us all from a very, very young age. And so if you're still in that, I get it. Plus, with ADHD, many of us were put down for our ADHD traits, right? We were criticized and corrected way more than our non ADHD peers. And so we got the message that we were doing it wrong, we're some way defective or different in a bad way, that led some of us to feel like we're incapable, or even that we don't have value unless we are helping someone, that we just don't have this inherent sense of value. And so these are things that you may have come to believe, to internalize for yourself. You might have even become a people pleaser and or a perfectionist in order to compensate for what people made it seem like were your shortcomings, which really was you being your ADHD self and it not jiving well with neurotypical society. Like, we can go down that rabbit hole another day. In all actuality, it's that when people were upset you were different, it's because you weren't acting not ADHD. So that's kind of ridiculous. But also, a lot of us, because we were young girls, we didn't see how un-okay that was. Like, that's not cool. And so we internalized that. And here's what I want to say: this doesn't mean we have to continue living like this or believing these old stories about not having value unless we're caring for someone else. Because the problem is, when you put yourself last, I mean, first of all, it's not good for you or your health. And we could go down that whole rabbit hole. but it's also not good for your business. Because number one, you are the light of your business. If you are a digital entrepreneur, if you have a brand based business like my ADHD business, you are the light of your business. You're the light that attracts clients to you. You're the one who does the work to help people. And so if you are out of alignment, if you are not valuing yourself, it's going to be very hard to do good work with the people you do attract. And it's going to be even harder to attract people to you if you're not valuing yourself. But the second piece of this is that if you don't value yourself, that's a problem because working on your business means dedicating time to something you care about and value. So that if you don't value yourself, why would anything you care about get to be valued either? So it can become a real problem getting yourself to find time to work on your business and prioritize that or work for your business. So when you do this, your business suffers because you're not prioritizing yourself because you don't believe you have value. And then you're not really prioritizing your business, which obviously is a problem because whether you're building or growing a business, it needs to be one of your top priorities, which priority is a funny word. It was meant to mean one. Somehow it's become plural. Again, another rabbit hole dive we could do another day. But I wanna just say, listen, I get it. There are some times, like after the birth of a baby or something, where you just cannot prioritize your business and yourself in the same way, right? It might be that you have to work more slowly in your business or ramp down your self-care a little bit, even though you're still getting it in here and there because you have these other things going on. It might be a slower pace that your self-care, that your work on your business happens. And I have witnessed many ADHD women entrepreneurs struggle to do things for their business because they are so busy and overwhelmed by and exhausted by everything that they do for everyone else. So that by the time they get to caring for themselves and doing stuff for their business, they've got nothing left or very little left. Which is not a great business model for sure, right? And if this is you, I wanna say, I feel you. I feel the exhaustion. I even get the struggle of prioritizing and valuing yourself. In fact, I sometimes call myself a recovering caretaker or recovering people pleaser because I used to do this myself. I used to put everyone else before me, and with ADHD, I found that if I did that, people would like me and be nice to me. But obviously, that didn't work because I'm sure you know this, but when we do that, the people that we attract are takers. They're not people who actually care about us. They're just people who want what we give them, which is hard, right? That was a hard lesson to learn. But when I stopped doing that, I lost all of my quote unquote friends who I learned really weren't friends. They just appreciated what I did for them. Which was hard. That was hard. That was painful. And the reality is that didn't work, but I get why we do it because I've done it myself. But what I noticed from it is all that caretaking did was leave me burned out, exhausted, and really, really angry and resentful. So then, like I said, I stopped doing it. And then the people that I thought were friends, I found out weren't friends. They were just using me for all the good things I was doing for them to try and make them be my friends, right? Which is a little manipulative when you think about it. It doesn't feel manipulative when you're doing the caring because you're just like, oh, I care and I want them in my life. But then you start to realize, oh, hmm, yeah, maybe there's multiple things going on there. But if this is you, I really get it. I've been there. I've done this. I did this for years and it doesn't work. And I remember the shifts I had to make to do something different. And then I remember spending years and years trying to kind of convince other women, mostly therapy clients, but also other people I knew, to set and maintain boundaries, to delegate, including to their families, right? To stop people pleasing. and to have frank conversations with their loved ones about the inequity in their relationships. And don't get me wrong, all of those things were important. Those were great things I did as a therapist. That was important, but it didn't work, at least not long term. And it wasn't until recently that I put it together why, like what I was missing, because I was missing something and what I was missing was huge. And this might be what you're missing too. What I was missing is that many women have a limiting belief or multiple limiting beliefs that keep them coming back to continuing to put themselves last. Like they might be able to be like, oh, yeah, I need to prioritize self care for a few weeks or something. And then it goes back. And a lot of times, some of those limiting beliefs are around like not believing they're truly worth their own time, energy, and money, right? That they don't see that they too have value at least as much as the people that they're caring for, right? Maybe even don't believe that they inherently have value, even though we all do. And again, we have internalized societal messages that have made us believe that it has to be this way. Not to mention, like, most men's weaponized incompetence that I hear about, emotional immaturity, wounded masculine behaviors, and internalized patriarchy. But that's another story for another time. But what I can say is here's how you can kind of know if this is showing up in your life, if this is problematic. And I'll just share some of the signs, traits, possibilities that are happening if this is you. Uh, you feel like you have to do things or no one else will. And it might be that you've trained everyone that you have to do things because they won't, or they've trained you that they won't. So then you do, right? Like it's that messed up conundrum situation there, right? But if you feel like you have to do it or no one else will, that's a sign that this could be what's going on, right? That you have no energy left for yourself after you're done doing for and giving to everyone else. That you believe it's just easier and more efficient if you just do it yourself. The amount of time and energy it would take to teach the other people to do it and then get them to do it and convince them to be willing to do it is just not worth it. You maybe don't want people to reject or be mad at you if you say no. Maybe thinking like you couldn't handle that. Right? Like, when I was telling my story earlier, which I wasn't planning on telling about having lost a bunch of my friends when I started setting boundaries, I was like, "Ooh, maybe not a good time to share because 'cause they'll be like, oh, yep, that's why I don't wanna do this." And of course, you have parts of you that are like, "Yeah, we're just gonna keep people pleasing and doing for others because otherwise we can't handle not having our friends. We can't handle that rejection." That too is a sign. That's a limiting belief that you couldn't handle it if people got mad at you or rejected you in some way for honoring your own self. And I know you know this. If the people in your life are only there because of what you do for them, that relationship is not really a relationship. That's kind of like them using you. Don't get me wrong, like kids under a certain age, especially, oh my gosh, yes, that's all it is. And certainly, I will say, I remember this is embarrassing how old I was, but I remember I was 23. No, I would have been a little younger, but whatever. I was in my early 20s. And I remember calling my parents' house because I wanted to talk to my mom. And this was long before cell phones. Answering machines were a thing at this point, and I think voicemail had come out a couple years prior. So this is how long ago this was. But I remember calling them and they didn't answer. I was like, "What? I wanna talk to them. Where are they?" And I look back and I'm so embarrassed that my 20 whatever year old self didn't recognize that, "Oh, my parents are people and have a life." That's when I learned that. I was like, "Oh, so they have a life besides me? Like, they wanna do something besides care for me?" Which makes me sound like a spoiled snot, right? I wasn't. I worked hard. I did good stuff. It's just that, like, our the way our brains are through adolescence, which is age 25 for women, and they're saying full brain development for men is now closer to 30. So when you think about that, it's like, oh, okay, of course, there's still some egocentricity in our young adult children. But it's, oh, how can we teach them that they can do things for themselves and also recognize that they may not get it yet? They may not get it because we've had to care for them. As they get older, obviously, you can teach them how to do those things for themselves and also teach them that you have a life. But when they're young, is kind of what I was referring to. There is a time where they need you, and it's not that they're using you or anything, they're children. But at some point, it's okay. Let's find some balance in the relationship. And probably 20 is not that age. You're still offering them some value and teaching them things, right? Maybe closer to, I don't know, their 30s and 40s. There's a little more give back. But with everyone else, if there's not some kind of mutual support and an overall balance between give and take, that relationship is really not a good one. It's just not. And I that might be hard to hear, but I know that you know that, and I also know that parts of you are still afraid of losing it if you're in this place, and that's why it can be hard to stand up and say, "Nope, not doing it." All right, so that was a little bit off the rails, back to signs. You don't wanna be seen as a selfish bitch for putting yourself first. I get that. That was one of my big concerns, and probably now people might think I'm a little bit of a selfish bitch. I do put myself first. I absolutely do. I will compromise when it's not always my way, certainly not. Especially when my nieces were young, I would really just kinda do whatever my sister's family needed. Now I'm asking for things for myself and setting boundaries about what I can and can't do. But I'm sure there's some people who think I'm a selfish bitch. I exercise every single morning. I meditate every single morning. I write every single morning. I do a little bit of yoga every single morning, and those are main priorities. Those are like non-negotiables. Something big has to happen for that not to happen. And yeah, there's days when those things don't happen. Like I was sick this week and I literally rolled out of bed for my 10 a.m. telehealth therapy client because I wasn't sick enough to not work, but I was too sick to go into the office or do any of the other stuff before I started work because I needed the sleep more than I needed those things. So it's not that those things never happen, but it's that I prioritize them. And you might even in your head be like, must be nice, must be nice. But there's even people who think it's selfish that people like me choose to not have children. So I get it. And so that fear is somewhat valid. People might call you a selfish bitch if you put yourself first. And some of it is that you have to trust that you can handle that. That if people do call you a selfish bitch, you're like, all right, well, first of all, am I? Chances are, if you're concerned about it, you're definitely not. But also, can you handle it if someone says that and it's not true? And just be like, whatever, that's their opinion. They don't get it. So being able to trust that. And if you're not able to, that might be a sign that this is one of the limiting beliefs that you need to work on for yourself and for your business. One of the things I see is moms being really focused on just like making this like almost like Disney style happy stress-free childhood for their kids. And sometimes it can even be maybe you had a traumatic childhood or parents that just were not functioning well enough to really take care of you in healthy ways. Maybe even you experienced some abuse and neglect. And so you might be like, oh, I got to make this amazing for my kids. And so there can be this overcompensation so they don't go what you went through, but then they never meet their mom. They just meet this stressed out, strung out, tired version of who their mom is because you're so busy trying to make everything happy and stress-free for them. The other thing, and I know you know this, doing that is not actually helpful for your kids. One of the things we know kids need to experience is just like healthy stress and to do chores and things that they don't like so that they can learn how to function in adulthood. Otherwise, they are on their own at whatever age 20, 22, whatever life choices they make, and they don't know how to do anything for themselves. And then they're screwed. So it's like, right, finding that balance. But I get that you might have that limiting belief that you have to give this to your kids. And so it's working through some of that, right? Last but not least, a common one I see is you believe you're supposed to be of service or even to sacrifice. And I see this one come up. I work with women who have religious trauma, And even in my Catholic upbringing, there was definitely this narrative that to be worthy, you have to sacrifice and you have to give to everyone else, that you have to live a life of service. And don't get me wrong, I think it's important to serve others. And I I don't think we have to sacrifice every moment of happiness, pleasure, and fun that we could possibly have so that we're constantly serving others and at the risk of developing chronic illness because we're not doing the care we need to do, right? So there's that. I'm not ripping on anyone's faith-based tradition who told them that. I might be ripping on my own. I don't know. At least my experience of it. But a lot of times, we get that message, and then I've noticed women believe that, and that it can be really hard to put themselves first because they feel, first of all, there's like younger parts of them that are actually afraid of going to hell. I know I had that for a while, even though my adult self doesn't align with that anymore. I had younger parts of me terrified of that. So I get that if that's you and you're no longer in those traditions, then I understand that this is a big one. And if you're still in one of those traditions that tells you that, I I don't really know what to tell you about that because I have a hard time believing I'm gonna get a little I don't know if this is out of my lane or not, but I have a very hard time believing that a loving God or a loving spirit or whatever it is that you believe in would bring you onto this beautiful planet and let everyone else have things that are pleasurable and fun, and you have to sacrifice and not enjoy anything. 'Cause I don't know, I'm just looking at the Beamer my priest had growing up, and I'm thinking, "Yeah, he lived in the rectory, so he didn't have to pay for housing, and so he drives a Beamer?" I'm like, "Hmm, that's interesting. How is that sacrificing every single thing?" And it's not, and I have no problem with him driving a Beamer if that's how he wanted to spend his money, that's up to him. It's just that and it was a new one too, by the way, it wasn't like an old junker, but that's fine, he gets to do that, but I think it can happen a lot where us women will be like, "Oh, we have to sacrifice everything," but no one else is doing that, so we, like, take that message to heart and run with it and believe that we can't do anything that we enjoy or have fun ever. So and we start to look at self-care as the pleasure of taking a bath, which, don't get me wrong, I'm sure a bath is nice. I don't really like baths, but, like, self-care isn't just hygiene. We need to have self-care that's over and above just plain hygiene, right? You deserve more than that. And if you're like, I don't feel that I do, if you're noticing a part of you that's, I don't know that I feel that I do believe that. I think I do have to sacrifice. I don't think I should get to have fun. Then those are parts of you that have these messages very deeply ingrained, especially if you don't see it as separate from yourself. And you learned that from somewhere. And I'm not saying you can't hold true to that. You absolutely can. You get to decide what you want your business and your life to look like. It's just that when you hold these limiting beliefs, it's gonna be very, very hard for you to put the time and energy into yourself and to your business that your business needs so that you can serve the people that you are here to serve in your business. We can't give from an empty cup, and I know you know that. At least I think you maybe you've learned that the hard way. That's one of the things they teach us as social workers. Day 1 in my master's program, I'm pretty sure there was that was chanted at us. Probably not chanted, I'm kind of exaggerating, but that was a clear message that you cannot serve from an empty cup, and you can also not work harder than the people that you're serving, that they need to have some skin in the game and put in some effort too. So I don't know if that's helpful for any of you as you're noticing this limiting belief to start to reframe some of that. But here's the thing. Me just telling you that is not gonna be enough. It's not gonna be enough. It's like when I would tell people to have boundaries and fire them up about, "Yeah, you have every right to ask for what you need." And you might be fired up by that, you might be scared by some of what I said, but here's the truth. Even if you're super fired up about it, number 1, if you set boundaries and you never had, you are gonna experience people being mad at you, not because you're bad, but because you're taking away something they've been benefiting from. Right? They're not gonna see it as, "Oh, good, she's loving and caring for herself." They're just gonna be like, "Well, this is inconvenient to me." And that's not cool, and that's why we have to have conversations. But also, there's a need for some deeper work before you step into those boundaries. You can try them out and start working on them. But if you still have parts of you that believe you are not worth your time and energy, if you were saying yes to some of those signs or symptoms of this that I was talking about, if you're like, oh, yeah, I believe that. Oh, that's true. That's true for sure, Jen. I can't believe you're even busting that as a myth or talking about that as a myth. But if you believe those things, then it's going to be very hard for you to stay consistent, setting boundaries and requesting and requiring people to honor you and value you when you don't value yourself. So I said that we'd get to what to do about it. And what to do is step one, start to notice when these different variations of the same limiting belief, I don't have value or I'm not worth my time and energy and money. Start to notice when that pops up. Start to notice when you're leaking your power. Oh, I can't afford that. You're choosing not to afford something. And you might be like, but Jen, I'm living paycheck to paycheck. Sure. Okay. Great. And there are choices you make. There's choices you make. We all have made choices on how we spend our money, how we spend our time that have gotten to where we are now. And we continue to make choices. And I'm not saying you have great choices available. Oh, they're all lovely choices. Some of it's like that Let's Make a Deal show. There's 3 doors and 2 of them are shitty. Isn't that how it goes? Like, or maybe one of them's bad and one is mediocre and then the one is the big prize or something. I'm not saying any of these doors are the fantastic prize, but you always have a choice. You always have a choice. Even if it wouldn't be in your best interest, there's always a choice there. Or even if it would be uncomfortable, there's always a choice there. Anyway, I digress. Back to what to do about it is to start to notice, just have awareness of when some of this is coming up for you, when you are leaking your power, when you are putting yourself last, when you do not believe you have enough value or you're not worth taking time or energy or spending money on yourself. When you notice that, pause for a moment and be like, oh, yeah, I see that. Maybe see, and this would be step 2, if you can acknowledge that's a part of you that learned that belief, that whatever is causing that behavior. There's a part of you inside that learned that you don't have value or that you're not worth your own time, energy, or money, or that everyone else needs to come first, or that you have to care for everyone, like the caring mandate says, teaches young girls, right? Whatever that limiting belief is, when you notice a behavior that connects to it, see if you can be like, yeah, I acknowledge that there's a part of me that believes something about my own value or worth or whatever when this comes up. And just see if you can acknowledge it. And eventually, what you can try and do when you're ready is see if you can understand how that part came to believe that. How did that part come to believe that? And do you get that? Even if you don't agree with it, do you get that? That this part believes that? And can you validate? Oh my gosh, right? Like it might be a part is protecting you from rejection because you were rejected as a young kid because you said no to someone or something, right? And then that's valid that you develop this belief that you can't say no because otherwise people reject you. It's like, oh my gosh, my voice just turned into a little kid voice. Maybe I have a part I need to work with. But it's about recognizing that and being like, "Oh, yeah, I get that." That when I was younger, a part of me learned that this is how it had to be, and that this part is trying to protect you, and maybe even see if you can express some gratitude for, "What? I get how you've been trying to help me. Thank you." Because chances are this part has helped you through much of your life. It's helped you get to where you are now. And then you get to start to reflect on, and again, this is deeper writing, this is deeper work. This is why I offer coaching. This is why I offer one-to-one coaching in my program Ascend now, which is a new feature I added because I noticed people needed more one-to-one coaching. And this is the work is figuring out like, okay, this part has been doing this to protect you. And also, what it's doing isn't helping you anymore. The way it's going about it is actually keeping you small. It's getting in the way of you doing what you need to do for your business. And so the deeper work there is to work with the part on how it could let you take the lead and let you do what you need to do. And a lot of times I'll tell you there's some deeper healing there. But what I shared today is a start. It's a really good start to understand. It's a good start to understand. It is a good start to, yeah, begin to understand what's actually going on versus it has to always be this way. And if you have a part of you that is absolutely not Jen, you're crazy, you don't know what you're talking about, then that part of you is welcome too. Because what I'm suggesting might be scary to something inside of you. It might be scary to suggest you step outside of whatever it is that you were taught needed to happen for you to be safe, for you to be loved, for you to have connection. But what I'm also here to say is that for you to have the business you want, this isn't working. You need to stop playing small, but to stop playing small first, you need to learn to value yourself. And I don't like telling anyone what they need because you know what you need. And what I will also say is I think it would be very, very hard. And it's not just that I think this. In my experience, I cannot imagine anyone being able to do, what you need to do as an entrepreneur when you don't value yourself, when you don't think you're worth your own time, energy, and money, when you put yourself last constantly over and over and over again. So this is about stepping into your personal power. This is about stepping into your potency. This is about becoming sovereign of your own body, your own life. And doing that, overcoming this so you can do that will help you take your business where you want it to go. All right, y'all. Thank you for being here. I hope this was a powerful episode for you. And if you're not following yet, be sure to follow. And I would love it. You know what? If you left me a review, that would be like so great. If you left me a review, I would love it if you leave a review and even share if this was meaningful to you. And also in the show notes, I did mention how to work with me one-on-one in coaching if you want to do some of this deeper work. I'll put an application for one-to-one coaching to see if we're a fit in the show notes. And if you're interested, I did mention my program Ascend. So if you're interested in that, I'll share that too. Probably what's bigger now is I'm doing some weekly workshops on how to overcome invisible ADHD obstacles to build a prosperous, meaningful business you love. And so it is essentially my 3-part live event, kind of squashed down carefully into an hour to an hour and a half. And it depends who's there and how many people are there, how long it takes. Sometimes I go slower, sometimes I go faster. It depends who's there. It's probably on average 75 minutes is what I'd say. But if that interests you, I'll put a link so you can register for that in the show notes as well. So that one's not super fancy, but I've got a number of dates still left in November coming up. So you can check that out as well. There's going to be lots of information in the show notes. So read them carefully, especially the last part. All right, y'all. Thanks for being here. And I look forward to catching you next time. Take care.